Hi students, today's your second day of class. We're going to really dive into our world history content. So you're going to be learning about ancient civilizations. You may have already taken a look ahead at the resources I have already loaded into Google Classroom, but we'll talk more about what's in Google Classroom and what your assignments are for today. That's Tuesday, August 18th. Okay, so we're in Google Classroom. What you need to look at and remember is the stream is your information tab. It shows you important dates and announcements from me, the teacher. Okay, that's what's in the stream. You will not find class assignments in the stream. What you will find is how we're keeping up with what to do. If you haven't already seen, we have this Google Doc that has embedded hyperlinks to the resources you need to complete your work. Okay, so every day of the week, you're going to pull up this same Google Doc, the same one for all week long, Monday to Friday. Okay, you should have already completed Monday's assignments. It was pretty easy. That was to watch the recorded lecture and answer this question. Why study history? So you looked at some slides and I gave you some possible answers and you completed it over here in this assignment. You'll see when I click on this, it takes me to Google Classroom, to the assignment. Your screen will look a bit differently because you are in your own Google Classroom page, but it should look something similar to this. So you have instructions, you have resources you can look at, and then you have the thing that you were supposed to turn in. This Get to Know You survey. Some of you noticed that I made a mistake when I picked this answer. What is the name you prefer? I accidentally had in here a number response. It was not supposed to be a number response. You were simply supposed to be able just to type in the name you want to be called. So we'll talk more about that during our live session tomorrow. But this was Monday's assignment. Hopefully you've got it done. When you finished, you hit submit at the bottom, and then you go back, and over here in the assignment you should have something that says turn in. When you turn it in, that lets me know that you're done and you're ready to move on to the next thing. Okay, let's go back to your assignments and talk about what we're doing on Tuesday. On Tuesday, you have lots of stuff to do. You're going to watch this lecture that I'm recording right now. You are going to join the Google Meet session. Guess what? Starting at 10:15 a.m. So during second period at 10:15, we'll host our first live session. You can get to it in two different ways. You can simply click over here and you have the link directly to Google Classroom, or you go into Google Classroom and you click right here at the top of Google Classroom. There's a link right here to go live. You do not have to have a camera to do that. You don't even have to have a microphone for your voice. You can type in things that you want to chat about, or you can use your Chromebook. You can even use a cell phone for the Google Meets. And the purpose of Meets is to be able to ask questions about what you're learning, understand instructions, and communicate with your classmates. That's what we'll be using that for. So I have it already posted in Google Classroom for you, just to show you that this is an announcement of what is going to happen tomorrow, and you'll just click this link to go live at 10:15 a.m. All right, back to your assignments for tomorrow. You're going to take fill in the blank notes over Mesopotamia and Egypt. It is okay if you don't finish the notes tomorrow. You'll have until Thursday to finish because Friday is your first quiz. So make sure you get that done by Friday so you know what you need to know for the quiz, and you can start doing other things like reviewing your vocabulary. Okay. You also have an assignment to turn in tomorrow. It's a mapping activity over Egypt and Mesopotamia. All right, let's look at these notes assignment in classroom and the mapping activity together. I'm going to open up the notes assignment. You'll go here to complete this by Thursday. I'm giving you some instructions. You do not have to finish tomorrow, but your quiz over the information Mesopotamia and Egypt will happen on Friday. So you want to get it done as quickly as possible so that you can get to your other activities. All right, if you'll open it up, you have a PowerPoint. I always like to go up here and say open with Google Slides so that it opens up the whole thing and you have a better view of what you're looking at, and you can see additional notes and things that don't pop up when you don't have the full thing open. All right, so I'm going to open that, and then I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to open up the notes. When you open up the notes, you'll receive your own copy that will be saved in your own Google Drive, and you can type in the notes, and I want to show you something more about that as well. All right, just waiting on the computer. Computer's having to work really hard to make this happen right now. Okay, look at the first slide. It says, you will not be tested over this information. So the very first slides are just really cool information that I thought you would like to know about world history, where it all started, what's the difference between history and prehistory. You've heard those terms before. What do you think the difference is? All right, so these first slides about prehistory. Prehistory is the time before written records. So anything before language that describe certain events and record keeping, we call prehistory. So it's before the time period of written records. One of the earliest relationships to humans came from this area of Africa, East Africa. Eventually, all people came from this region of the world, and they dispersed northward into new locations. This is a pretty cool map showing how everyone left the same place in Africa and went in all different directions. Prehistory, the Old Stone Age. So this is the time period of human history where people were living as nomads. They were traveling very long distances to hunt and gather their food. All right, then an event happens. It's called the Neolithic Revolution or the New Stone Age. This is when big societies start forming, big groups of people start working together, and large farming happens. And they're able to live more successfully, more productively, because when people work together in groups, they can be a lot more productive. All right, so we have some stages of the Neolithic Revolution. It's the end of the nomads, the end of the traveling, to societies forming. Domestication of animals means they keep their animals like an ox or a cow inside their fence, really close to their home, so they don't have to go out and hunt every single thing they eat. And they have more healthy things to eat. When you own a cow, you have access to milk, and that's very good and healthy for the body. Also, the agricultural revolution. This is where people learned how to farm on very big scales. And if you're interested, you can watch the short video and answer those questions there. We're moving on. We're getting ready to learn something new. So this is called a visual thinking strategy. You're looking at the picture. You want to ask yourself, what is happening? How do you know what's happening? And what else can you find? So stop and take a minute to look here before you start learning about civilizations. All right, so civilizations, as populations grow, people start forming these societies, and societies get bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, so as they started to produce more food, they had a food surplus. That means they had more than what they could eat, and this made people's bodies really healthy. The more healthy they are, the more productive they can be. The more productive they are, they can spend time not just farming, they can spend time making really good, efficient tools for their farming, things like that. They start to expand on their technology when they have more time to focus. All right, so here's what you're going to be tested on. You're going to be tested on civilizations. Standard 1 says you're going to analyze the origins, structures, and interactions of society in the ancient world from 3500 BCE or 500 BCE. You're also going to define diverse characteristics of societies in Central and South America. We'll talk more about that later. All right, so Unit 1, learning targets. Read over these of what you're supposed to be learning. What is a civilization? Here's where you're going to start taking your notes, okay? Civilization is a complex, highly organized social order. So look at the picture. It shows you the complexity. They have these buildings, this temple right here in the middle, this wall for protection. They have farmland on the outside. They have a waterway to get their supplies to and from. Okay, and they have like a business center here where important things are going to be happening. Civilization is very highly organized. It's a lot more structured than a nomadic society where they're just traveling around trying to survive. Right, so if you'll notice right here, written in red and underlined, that is what you need to write down in your notes. All right, civilization. Take a look at that. Come over here to your note set. What is a civilization? A complex, highly organized social order. You're going to write in the word order. It includes 8 features. I'm asking you on the next section to write those 8 features out. So right here, I have them numbered for you. You need to type in the features of a civilization. And finally, from this slide, the first civilizations developed around rivers. So think about why a river would be important to life and surviving civilizations. All right, there are 4 river valley civilizations we're going to learn in Unit 1. We're starting here with Mesopotamia. There are 2 rivers surrounding Mesopotamia. Then we're going over here to Egypt, India, and China. Okay. There are some characteristics of each civilization that you want to know about. You want to know about their culture, their economics, how do they make money, technology, how do they complete the work they have to do, how do they make life better with their technology, their politics, are they harsh rulers with strict rules, or are they very laid back? Maybe it even depends on your social class or your ethnic group, depending on your consequences for breaking laws. We'll find more about that later. Religion. Why did they practice religion the way that they did? Did they believe in only one god or many gods? The first civilization is Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia is also called the Fertile Crescent. Think about fertile. Fertile land allows things to grow very easily. You don't have to work very hard to make that happen. It's also known as the Fertile Arc, the land between the rivers. You'll look and see there are 2 rivers, the Euphrates and the Tigris. It's also known as the cradle of civilization. Think about your baby. You rock them in a cradle. This is where life begins. You begin life in the cradle of your mother's arms. Okay, more notes to write down about geography. So the two rivers that made life possible in Mesopotamia are called the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. Very important to know. Each civilization will have river systems you need to memorize. So for Mesopotamia, Tigris and Euphrates. Although they had the rivers, which made the soil very fertile, outside of that was desert. So rains coming in were not happening very often. They were very occasional. So this unpredictable weather also impacted their religious beliefs and their ability to get the agriculture they needed for their society. The lack of natural boundaries, such as mountains, left the area up to invasion. So this area, the Fertile Crescent, was surrounded by many different societies who were constantly invading one another, constantly overpowering one another, wanting more power and control. We'll talk more about that development later on. All right, so what do you think about this unpredictable environment? How do you think this environment affected the development of religion? I think they're going to have to pray a lot, ask gods, please bless us. We need food. What do you think they're going to do? Religion. They become polytheistic believers, or they practice polytheism. Polytheism is the belief in many gods. They believe in a sun god, god of water, god of earth, god of air, god of heaven. All of these natural processes that they depend on to have the food, the agriculture they need to survive. Religion. They practiced their religion in a temple. It was called a ziggurat. A ziggurat. They wanted to build their temple up so that they were close to the gods and the gods could see their prayers and their worship and their festivals, praising their gods, asking their gods for good favor to bring them the agriculture they need. There was not one single religious text for polytheism in Mesopotamia. But because they lived in this very unpredictable weather environment, not knowing when they would get rain, if they would get rain, they were very fearful of the afterlife. So they wanted to do a lot of festivals, a lot of rituals to prove to their gods that they were good and they deserved the food that they needed to survive. So very ritualistic sacrifices, those types of things, because they just were so scared of what would happen after they passed and wanting to live a good life, live up to the standards of their gods. Here are some examples of the ziggurat. You can see the ziggurat in this picture being right in the center of their city. Very important religious practices. All right, let's talk about culture. Culture, cuneiform, or cuneiform, it's also pronounced, was the very first ancient language, very first writing system. So when you think about our English alphabet, A, B, C, D, they used something called cuneiform. Think about the purpose of having a written language. What would you want to write down? Think about that for a second. Some important things you might want to write down. If you bought land, you want proof that you bought and paid for it. If you paid a tax, you want to prove to the government that it's paid, you don't owe it again. If you have a baby, perhaps you want a birth certificate to prove the child belongs to you and their name and where they were born. So think about the uses of a writing system and how important that would be to a society. They also had many social classes. There's always a ruling class, and there's always the people at the bottom, the slaves, peasants. Um, they were very religiously involved, so there was lots of rituals, festivals, sacrifices happening. They used advanced literature, and there's one tale called the Epic of Gilgamesh. We'll talk about that in a moment. That's very important to their culture. Also, art and architecture. All right, let's talk more about cuneiform. Cuneiform is the very first written system in the world. It was created by the ancient Sumerians, who were also a civilization within Mesopotamia. The first alphabet also came from a Mesopotamian society called the Phoenicians. You don't have to know this for the test, so I'm not asking you to write anything down. All right, let's talk more about the Epic of Gilgamesh. So you can see from the scenes here, this ruler, the story is written about a ruler who goes on a very epic tale. He goes through this dark, terrifying place, and he's worried about what's going to happen, if he's going to be rejected by the gods and basically sent to hell for the way that he lived his life, or is he going to be rewarded in heaven? It's a tale basically about the afterlife and what might happen. Some more pictures from the art of the Epic of Gilgamesh. All right, economies. We've already talked about agriculture being very important. They depended on their agriculture to make money, to barter, to exchange goods that were needed. Perhaps somebody would make the oil, somebody would produce apples, somebody would create barley, which is a form of wheat that you need for making bread and such things. In the city-state of Sumer, Ur was a major center for trade and commerce. So a very big city existed within Sumer called Ur. Temples were a primary place of employment, constantly praying to the gods, asking for those agricultural needs. All right, here's some examples of bartering. Pretty interesting. The function of a scribe, that is one of their job functions, was to write down those written records, accounting, who paid for the barley that they needed, who still needs to pay that bill, keeping those important records. This is an economic tablet from Susa. So as you can see, these records that are being kept in cuneiform are not on paper. They're literally on stones. And this is a pretty cool map because you can see the different regions, the river valley civilizations we're going to be learning about, the different types of agriculture that they're able to grow depending on where they lived and the environment. Technology. Getting water from the river to your farm was super important. So they had to create irrigation systems. Irrigation is just ways for water to travel that are man-made, not natural. Some of those things that we still use today. Drainage ditch, canals, levees, dams. Look at the pictures carefully and try to identify some of those items. Technology also, they were the first group to use a horse and chariot. Think of the uses besides war that a chariot might have for a farmer. Technology, ironworks. They were also able to adapt the raw resource of iron into war weapons and tools. Very important part of their lifestyle, having the tools necessary to make that agriculture. You also remember they're constantly being invaded, so they need those weapons, and they need a mass supply of those weapons constantly. Also, the compound bow. The Mesopotamians are known for being one of the first to create the compound bow. And one of the most important inventions, the plow. The soil is very hard to dig by hand. So creating this very, what do I want to say, this very iron is a metal that is very hard, so it can cut through the soil much easier than somebody could do with hand and a shovel. Okay, and using the ox, a very powerful animal, to slice through that soil, get your seeds in as fast as you can, and start growing as fast as you can during the growing season. We also are the first to introduce the wheel. Also pretty important for agriculture to take place. Politics. All right, so they live in within city walls, so they can be very protected from their invaders, and they would call these organized cities city-states. It's kind of like a nation, but the size of a city. So there was a bunch of them. Mesopotamia wasn't just one large society. There was several societies, Babylon, Sumer, each having their own city-state. So a city-state is a town and the land it controls. It also often has one governing leader. So you would call that person a monarch, a king. They first developed in Sumer, Babylon, and City walls protected them, and they were made of mud brick dwellings with the ziggurat right in the center. Outside the city were large areas of farmland. They were ruled by hereditary kings, meaning kings passed down one generation to the next, the father, the son, the son. Okay, hereditary means you're related. All right, so they were seen as being from the city of gods, but they were not actually gods themselves. When you learn next about Egypt, they believed that their pharaohs, their leaders, were actual gods. So they did everything that they were asked to do by these gods, because you don't want to disappoint a god. You might end your life by doing that. So they did not believe that these people were actual gods. They were humans in their belief, but they came from a very divine place, a place created by the gods. Unification was difficult with these city-states. Like I said, there was just many of them. They would grow in population and want to expand out their lands, that being part of that constant invasions that are happening. As these cities get bigger and bigger, more powerful, they want to expand and take over the next location. A satrap was a local Persian ruler of a city-state. So the leader's name in this case would have been a satrap. This is just, both of these slides are not going to be on your test, you just need information. All right, so what do you think? Is the system of law within Mesopotamia fair or unfair? Think about why you believe what you believe. All right, let's talk about their system of law in politics. The Code of Hammurabi. Say it with me. Code of Hammurabi. He was a Babylonian ruler who created one set of laws. There was like all these many laws in all of the cities within Babylon. And he said, we need one set of laws so we all know which laws to follow and how to punish people who don't follow those laws. So he unified the laws. He brought all the laws together in one code of laws. The Code of Hammurabi included 282 laws written on clay tablets. They were displayed in public so everyone would know what the laws are. You may have even heard of one. An eye for an eye. Have you heard of that? You probably have. This is one of the laws. So what do you think? Is it a fair and just system, or is it not very fair? Should you be violent in your prosecutions for not following the law? Should that be something that happens? Maybe not, but in this time and point, in this civilization, they had to be very firm with their laws to make social order happen. Everybody had to do their job so that the civilization could survive, and that meant everybody had to follow very strict laws in order to be a productive society. An eye for an eye. Code of Hammurabi. There is the code written on what's called the stone monolith. It's in a museum now in London, but the picture shows Hammurabi taking his staff, which symbolizes he is the ruler, from God. He's passing it down to the ruler Hammurabi. All right, we're going to pick up with this slide about politics and the development of empires on Wednesday. See you then, and I'll see you tomorrow morning at 10:15 for our live session. Bye.